This Bible quiz brings you 23 true or false questions on the parables of Jesus. How well do you know them? Let's find out. In the parable of the Pharisee and the tax collector, the Pharisee looked down on the tax collector. True or false? True. The self-righteous Pharisee thanked God for not being like the tax collector, while the tax collector prayed to God for mercy. In the parable of the lost son, the older son was angry with the younger son for wanting a share of their father's estate. True or false? False. The older son was angry that his father celebrated the younger son's return with a fattened calf. In the parable of the sower, the seeds that the farmer scattered fell on 4 different types of ground. True or false? It's true. The seeds fell on the path, rocky ground, thorny ground, and good soil. In the parable of the Good Samaritan, the injured man was ignored by a rabbi and a Pharisee. True or false? That's false. A priest and a Levite passed by the injured man without helping him. In the parable of the rich fool, the rich man was condemned for not being rich towards God. True or false? True. He only planned to store his surplus grains and enjoy life, but God demanded his life that very night. In the parable of the mustard seed grew into the largest of garden plants. True or false? True. Jesus compares the kingdom of heaven to a mustard seed, described as the smallest of seeds. In the parable of the bags of gold, the man going on a journey entrusted each of his 3 servants with 3 bags of gold. True or false? False. The man gave a servant 5 bags of gold, to another 2 bags, and to another 1 bag, each according to his ability. In the parable of the weeds planted by the enemy were allowed to grow among the wheat in the field until the harvest. True or false? True. To avoid uprooting the wheat, the owner of the field let the weeds grow until harvest, when they would be collected and burned. In the parable of the unmerciful servant, the master originally imprisoned the servant who owed him 10,000 bags of gold. True or false? False. The master canceled the servant's debt but later demanded everything back after learning about the servant's lack of mercy. In the parable of the lost sheep, the owner left 99 of his sheep in the open country. True or false? That's true. He left the 99 in the open country to go after the one lost sheep. In the parable of the 2 sons, both sons initially agreed to their father's request to work in the vineyard. True or false? False. The first son initially refused but then went to work, while the second said he would work but did not go. In the parable of the fig tree, the owner asked to cut down the fig tree in his vineyard after he did not find fruit on it for 3 years. True or false? True. He asked to cut it down, but his gardener pleaded to allow the tree 1 more year to bear fruit. In the parable of the net, the fishermen caught only good fish in their nets. True or false? False. The fishermen caught all kinds of fish. They collected the good fish in baskets but threw the bad away. Did you know? The Bible records more than 30 parables by Jesus, but none are found in the Gospel of John. If you're enjoying this quiz so far, be sure to subscribe to our channel for much more such content. And now, back to the quiz. In the parable of the wedding feast, the king ordered the guest who did not wear wedding clothes to be bound and thrown out of the feast. True or false? True. The guest was unable to explain why he did not wear wedding clothes, and was thus thrown out into the darkness. In the parable of the lost coin, the woman calls her friends and neighbors together to rejoice after finding her lost coin. True or false? That's true. Celebration is likened to the joy in the presence of the angels of God over one sinner who repents. In the parable of the workers in the vineyard, all the workers in the vineyard received equal pay at the end of the day. True or false? True. All the workers each received 1 denarius, regardless of how long they worked. In the parable of the 10 virgins, 5 foolish virgins did not take their lamps to meet the bridegroom. True or false? It's false. The 5 foolish virgins took their lamps but did not take any oil with them. In the parable of the pearl, the merchant was looking for fine pearls but ended up buying only 1. True or false? True. When he found a pearl of great value, he went away and sold everything he had and bought it. In the parable of the tenants showed respect to the landowner's son who went to collect fruit from the harvest. True or false? False. The tenants recognized the son as the heir but killed him, planning to take his inheritance. In the parable of the growing seed, the man who scattered seeds on the ground took great care of them to ensure they grew well. True or false? That's false. The man did not know how the seeds grew, but all by itself the soil produced grain. In the parable of the shrewd manager, the manager increased the amount collected from his master's debtors to appease him. True or false? False. The manager reduced the debts to gain favor with his master's debtors. In the parable of the persistent widow, the judge eventually granted the widow's plea for justice as he feared God. True or false? False. The judge neither feared God nor cared what people thought, but granted justice to the widow as she kept bothering him. And lastly, in the parable of the great banquet, none of the original invited guests attended the banquet. True or false? True. The invited guests all made excuses not to attend, so the poor, crippled, blind, and lame were brought to the banquet instead. How many did you get right? Thanks for playing, and challenge yourself with the next Bible quiz.